What's going on, guys? Supersavage789 here, bringing you guys a video doing what if Ash became an officer. Now, Pokemon What Ifs have become a lot more popular as of recent, and while I've been watching the anime, I thought, why not, dip my toe in the water, see if you guys like it. If you don't, we'll just go back to the usual stuff. Thought I might as well try something new. So without further ado, let's just get into the timeline of if Ash decided to become an officer of the law instead of becoming a trainer. So in this timeline, we'll say that there is an Officer Jenny stationed in Pallet Town. Seeing law enforcement helping people as well as commanding the Pokemon would truly get to the easily influenced young boy. So growing up, he'd dream about becoming a police officer and helping both people and Pokemon alike. Knowing this, Ash's mom, Delia, would decide that she should see what avenue Ash can go down in order to become an officer. So she would approach Officer Jenny and ask her what she thinks Ash can do here. She ponders this question and would decide to try and help the young boy foster his new dream. Growing up, Officer Jenny would do her best to help the Ketchum family. She lets them know different books to read or places to go in order to better help Ash learn about police and justice. She even lets them know about a police camp he can go to, which Ash would happily do instead of going to Professor Oak's camp, further driving him onto the path of being an officer instead of a trainer. This means that Ash never meets Serena, which will be important if we ever get to Kalos. Seeing Ash trying so hard would get the attention of Oak, so he'd still think rather highly of the boy. This kid clearly has a high sense of justice and is able to show kindness to Pokemon that is almost unmatched. This is clearly shown with how Ash acts around Officer Jenny's Arcanine. Gary and Ash would also have a different relationship with each other. I believe that Gary would see Ash as less of a loser and is much more impartial towards him. As Ash gets to the age of 10, he'd be preparing to properly enroll in the force. This might seem rather strange, however in the Pokemon world, a 10-year-old enlisting to the police force isn't the weirdest thing. Officer Jenny and Professor Oak would also be able to put in a good word, which would further allow Ash to be able to enroll early, so he'd be studying whenever he has some free time. This means that due to his upbringing, Ash should be somewhat smarter when it comes to Pokemon and battling, since that would be in some of the various books. When Ash reaches the age of 10, he'd be ready to head off to go and become an officer. Before he can though, Officer Jenny would call Delia and ask her to tell Ash to stop by Professor Oak's lab. She doesn't say why, however. While odd, Ash would reluctantly go and heads to the lab. He runs into Gary on the way, who tells Ash about his new Pokemon. Ash would tell Gary that it's pretty cool before entering the lab. When he arrives, he sees Officer Jenny and Professor Oak stood there, along with Officer Jenny's Arcanine. He then proceeds to ask them what this is about. Professor Oak and Jenny proceed to tell Ash that while he does have the knowledge needed to become an officer, he's lacking experience, which is rather crucial if he wants to be effective as an officer. This makes him upset as Ash interprets their words as them telling Ash he can't become one. They clarify by telling him that they think instead he should go out into the world and get some experience, meet people and Pokemon that he won't have met yet. Professor Oak then proceeds to hand Ash a Pokedex and some Pokeballs, telling Ash that he believes he has the capability to complete this. Plus, it'll keep him busy on his travels. Officer Jenny then tells Ash that if he's going out into the world, he'll need some backup. She then calls in a Pokemon. A Growlithe walks in that looks rather young, especially when placed next to the much bigger Arcanine. She tells Ash that this Growlithe has just recently been hatched and needs to be prepared to become a police dog. So Ash should be given the Growlithe, which he hugs rather tightly. He doesn't put the Pokemon in the ball, however, so is able to get the best experience possible as well. Ash then proceeds to tell his mother that he's leaving. She'd be rather upset, but understands. After packing her son's bag, Ash proceeds to leave on his adventure with his new Growlithe. The Growlithe would be rather playful, with Ash, which would just be nice to see. Ash wouldn't be too motivated to be a Pokemon trainer, as he just wants to meet people in Pokemon, so Ash wouldn't challenge the Pidgey and Sparrow he does in canon. As he continues moving, Ash would end up running into a girl fishing and greets her. She would say hello to Ash and introduces herself as Misty. The duo begins to have a conversation where Ash explains the situation and Misty explains hers, being that she decided to come fishing out here because it's just so peaceful. Misty would realize that Ash is new to Pokemon battling and asks him if he wants her to teach him the basics. He'd agree to do so and tells Growlithe to prepare himself. She sends out Staryu and proceeds to help Ash and Growlithe learn. Ash learns that Growlithe has the moves Flame Wheel, Ember, Bite, and Roar. It also allows Growlithe to learn how to better fight. Staryu doesn't fight back though, to make sure Growlithe knows what it's doing. After this, Misty would decide to take Ash to Viridian to heal up their Pokemon. They then get on her bike, which isn't damaged in this timeline, and proceed to travel to Viridian. Once arriving, they run into Officer Jenny of Viridian, who would know of Ash due to her cousin talking about him. She takes the gang back to Viridian Center and tells them some crafty individuals have been present lately. She then leaves. Ash would see the gym challenge poster on the wall, but doesn't decide to pursue it. That isn't his goal here. Plus, I imagine that due to him reading a lot, he'd probably know the gym challenge at least to a novice degree. Instead, Ash should be on the lookout for evildoers. So ultimately, Ash would encounter Team Rocket here. Misty and Ash team up, and together they manage to make Team Rocket blast off again. Ash isn't able to apprehend them though, due to his sheer incompetence. He does promise Growlithe that they will capture them eventually, however. It does mean that Team Rocket are now infatuated of Ash, and want to take his Pokemon. Ash would continue his adventure, and Misty decides to tag along, at least for right now. They head into Viridian Forest, where they would encounter a Caterpie. Again, Ash isn't going to capture Caterpie, due to that not being his motivation. So after playing around with the Caterpie for a little while, he'd simply leave. They later encounter a Pidgeotto as well, which Ash would find cool. He does simply leave it, however. Team Rocket show up to steal their Pokemon, and the duo dispatch them again. They do get away though. As they continue going, they find a boy wearing samurai clothes running in peril from a swarm of Beedrill. The duo both start running as well and make it back to their shack. He reveals that the swarm of Beedrill begin to attack him. Ash would decide to try and calm down the Beedrill as best he can, despite the kid and Misty both telling him not to. Using Roar, Growlithe gets their attention and begins using Flame Wheel and Ember to take them down as best as he can. Ash uses his body to shield Growlithe, getting him quite damaged in the process. They do manage to successfully defeat the Beedrill though, however Ash passes out from exhaustion and pain. Using a bike, Misty takes Ash and heads to the nearest center of Pewter. A man near the entrance of Pewter City would proceed to take care of Ash, and begins to heal him up at home. After Ash wakes up, he learns what happened and thanks the man for helping him. The man reveals his name, which is Flint, and tells him that Ash should be fit enough to leave soon, all the while playing with Ash's Growlithe. Ash says that Flint looks familiar, and begins to try to remember him. Being playful, Growlithe leaps at Flint and accidentally bites his fake beard off, leading Ash to realize he's the Pewter City Gym leader. He reveals that he was, but that he selfishly left, surprising Ash and Misty. He then reveals that his eldest son Brock has taken over. Misty asks why he can't simply go back, and he explains that he won't be able to change Brock's mind about leaving to pursue his dream. Even if he does go back, Brock is just too kind-hearted to actually leave. So Ash, wanting to help, decides to step up and offers to defeat Brock so he can leave to pursue his dream. The only issue is that Ash only has one Pokemon, which won't do. Considering Brock has two, he'll need two Pokemon. So Flint decides to lend Ash a Pokemon to use. Ash heads to the gym and challenges Brock to a battle, which Brock accepts. He sends out his Geodude with Ash using his Growlithe. Despite Growlithe being at a huge disadvantage, it is able to keep up with Geodude, just barely, using Bite and Roar to repel any sand attacks it uses. Ultimately, the fight ends with a Bite and Seismic Toss clash that leads to a double knockout. Next up, Brock sends out Onix and Ash sends out Flint's Rhyhorn. Brock feels like he recognizes the Rhyhorn, but he doesn't mention it, too focused on the fight. Using Rhyhorn, Ash is able to defeat Onix, using Earthquake and Horn Drill to better damage the Rock Snake. Its speed also allows it to avoid getting caught in a bide. So Onix is defeated. With Brock now defeated, Ash and Flint are able to convince Brock to leave and become a breeder. Ash tries to give back Rhyhorn, but Flint, realizing Ash has a good heart, decides to leave his Rhyhorn with him. Besides, if he wants to help people, he'll need a strong Pokemon. So Ash should officially add Rhyhorn to his team. The gang then head to Mount Moon, where they have to defeat Team Rocket and keep them away from the Moonstone. This episode pretty much goes the same, with the gang arriving in Cerulean. They don't head to the gym, but instead the episode revolves around the gang trying to solve the mystery of the break-in at the nearby store. Using Growlithe and Zubat for sonar and sniffing, they're able to arrive at Cerulean Gym quick enough to stop Team Rocket stealing any Pokemon. They do so, but yet again, Team Rocket are able to get away. With Misty helping, she's able to show her sisters how strong she truly is, which actually impresses them and leads to a nice moment. Moving along, the gang go past AJ's gym. Ash doesn't enter though, so AJ simply waits for a new victim. They keep moving and end up meeting Joe, helping him like normal. They learn about Pokemon tech, but this episode kinda goes the same. The only difference is Ash uses Growlithe instead of Pikachu against Cubone. Joey would start his Pokemon adventure, and I think he'd be the one to challenge AJ, which allows AJ to leave to pursue his own Pokemon adventure. Maybe they would even go together, who knows. The gang then get lost due to Brock's directions, where Misty finds Oddish. She tries to catch it, but Bulbasaur stops her, except here, Ash doesn't try to catch Bulbasaur. This episode then goes the same pretty much, except Ash is just using Growlithe to stop Team Rocket. Bulbasaur would still want to tag along with Ash, as it wants to help people, so he then catches it. Next episode, they find a Charmander and then head to the Pokemon Center. They overhear Damien where the gang start to argue with him. Ash even threatens to call Officer Jenny on him due to him having more than 6 Pokemon at any time, even though he's a trainer. This means him and his group then leave the center. The gang still help Charmander and fight Team Rocket, leading to Charmander befriending the group. Charmander bodies Damien and then joins Ash on his journey as well. Next up is the Squirtle Squad episode, which also goes the same. Only difference is that Ash rides Rhyhorn to the mart so he gets there quicker. He still ends up catching Squirtle, who decides he also wants to help people. Without catching 6 Pokemon, the gang would never need to call Oak, so they don't even meet Bill, and continue going to Vermilion. Deciding to heal up, Ash and the gang realize how brutal Surge is against young trainers, since he sees all the Pokemon coming in on stretches. This actually angers Ash, leading to him deciding to teach Surge a lesson. He approaches him and challenges him to a battle. If he wins, he needs to go easier on trainers. If Ash loses though, then he'll admit Surge is right. Surge agrees and sends out Raichu, with Ash choosing to use Rhyhorn, because again, he knows how to Pokemon battle on this timeline, he knows type effectiveness. With Rhyhorn using Earthquake and being able to take Raichu's electric attacks much easier, as well as the fact it was a gym leader's, he's able to defeat Surge first try. Surge then decides to honor the bet and be much nicer to trainers from now on. Moving along, the St. Anne adventures take place with Ash trading Rhyhorn only to trade back. The gang and Team Rocket get stuck in the ship, so when they run into each other, teaming up is a lot harder for Ash to accept. He agrees, however he's extremely reluctant about it. The thing with James' Magikarp evolving goes the same, leading to the gang ending up washed up on Pokemon Land. While on the island, Ash should proceed to use the Pokedex and sends a message to someone, while Brock and Misty aren't looking. The rest of the episode then goes the same. As they are leaving though, Ash attempts to tie up Team Rocket with a rope. He lunges at them, but Jesse and James fall out into the ocean below. As for Meowth though, he's not quick enough, and so Ash is able to successfully capture him. Upon arriving back to land, the gang meet up with Officer Jenny, where Ash explains the situation. As the Officer Jenny is speaking to Meowth, she mentions how he's going to go away for a long, long time. It makes Meowth rather scared, as he's almost in tears. Ash then tries to defend Meowth, telling Officer Jenny to wait a second. Pokemon aren't inherently evil on their own, it's just the influence of a trainer. So why not let him take me off with him for a while, so we can learn right from wrong. Plus he might know a thing or two about Team Rocket. Brock and Misty would also back him up. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, what would you rather see happen? Would you rather Meowth tag along with a gang, with Ash, trying to turn him good, and risk betrayal, and losing some Pokemon? Or should Jenny simply take Meowth away and arrest him, essentially eliminating Meowth from the equation entirely? What do you guys think would make a much better story in this instance? I'm going to leave off the first part here, and if we see some support, I'll make a second part. I'm quite proud of this timeline. I'm doing other Pokemon lists as well, if of course this one gets enough love and support. I've scripted out what if Ash evolved Pikachu. That's had more changes than I expected, but as you can imagine, it's not like a timeline like shift like this one is. So yeah, be hyped for that, and yeah, bye.